Hi, so this week I picked myself up another faulty Nintendo Switch from eBay. So overall condition of this is not too bad. This one again says no power. There's no game card in it. But if we have opened up, we have got an SD card and it's 128 gig Nintendo branded one, which is nice. So it only cost me £29, which is pretty good. I had to go from blurry pictures, but I took the gamble, decided to go for it. So we plug it in with the amp meter, and as you can see, nothing showing up on that side. We flip it round. We get a little flash and nothing on that side. So we've definitely got a dead short somewhere. So we need to use our iFixit kit to open it all up. So we get the tri-ring screws out to begin with in the corners, and then the Phillips head screws along the side. Then we'll peel the back off, reveal the back core, which is a little bit dusty but not too bad. Then remove the screws out of the rear heat shield. A couple of screws along the back just to remove all of them. And then the screw in the SD card connector, peel that off, and then we'll peel the heat shield off, and then there we go. First thing we always do is disconnect the battery to make sure that we don't get any shorts. And then we're going to come with our amp meter and take some readings. So we'll go to the continuity mode, which is going to beep. If we get a beep on both sides of the cap, then it means that we got a short. So we go around and all the caps along the top are okay. It's just the cap on the side, this one here, which is normally linked to the P13 on the other side. We'll just quickly check the fuse at the bottom as well, which is good. So we need to get the board out, so we take out all the screws, disconnect the ribbon cables as carefully as we can, remove the heat pipe without trying to rip too much of the foam that keeps it in place. Peel it off, peel it away. And then we can take the game card connector out and then disconnect the remaining ribbon cables, the speaker connections, and then we'll use our tweezers just to disconnect the remaining ribbon cables in the corner. And then we can get the tweezers in underneath the motherboard and gently pry it out. You can remove the fan if you want to, but I tend to find it's extra work that's not needed. And we'll get the motherboard out, flip it over, and I can see some damage on it straight away. There's a big mark on that P13, so we've got a big issue here. We're probably going to have a burnt trace or two as well, which isn't great. This top connector also looks a little bit damaged, the ribbon cable connector. So we're going to have to get it under the microscope. So this ribbon cable connector has a bit of damage on it, but I think it should be able to be cleaned up. The connector itself may also have some damage. If we have a little zoom in here, it looks like one of the pins is misplaced, so I may need to look at changing that as well. We'll have a look at the USB-C port. It looks a little bit dirty, but it doesn't look too bad, so I'll consider whether I'm going to change that or not. I'm not quite sure, but this obviously is the big issue. The P13's got a massive hole in the side of it. There's been a big power surge which has done complete damage to this, so we're going to have to get this off. Have a look from the side. We may have one or two burnt traces on the board, which we'll have to take a closer look at soon. But there's been a massive power surge into the board, so hopefully this is the only thing that's been majorly damaged. So apply a little bit of flux, and then we'll come in with 420 degrees heat, and then we'll just keep moving it round, try and melt all the solder, and then we'll come with our tweezers, and then we just have to make sure we lift up and away, not to either side, because we don't want to be knocking any of the caps. So up and away, and then we're done. And as you can see, now it's cooled down, there's real damage on that. It's one of the worst that I've seen. So we'll come in with some fresh flux and there's some fresh solder. So we just want to go over all the pads, mainly this corner bit, see if there's any damage. give it a little clean of isopropyl, and as you can see there is a bit of damage. We'll go back in with our multimeter, and now we can take the readings again, and as you can hear there's no more beeping on this side chip, which means the M92 should be okay, and it was only the P13 that took the hit. While we're on it, we're just going to quickly check these filters to make sure they beep either side. So go along all of them. There's a good chance one of them could have blown this end one, but they all seem to be okay. And then we'll have another look at the top, and there's definitely a pin damaged up here. So I don't know how this has happened, but I think we are going to have to replace that as well. So I decided I'm just going to take the remaining bit of the trace off that was slightly damaged. Now I'm going to scratch along this line to reveal a little bit of the copper trace. So scratch it off, make sure you don't go too deep into the board. And then once you've taken enough off, we can come in with our soldering iron and then just put a little bit of solder on there, nicely tin it. And then I've got these little metal copper traces which can be used. So this is a perfect fit. So I'm just going to line it up with the tweezers, get into the perfect position, come in with a little bit of flux, come with our solder, and then we just need to solder it onto the little bit of trace that we've scraped off. Give it a clean of isopropyl. And now we're going to apply some of this UV resin, which I've not used before. I've heard it's very good. So it works the same as solder mask. So we just need to open up, and then we'll get our tweezer, and then we're just going to lay a little bit across the top of it, all along the edge. And then you come in with a UV light and leave it on there for a couple of minutes so it hardens. Once it's completely hardened, you can come with your tweezer, and then we just need to scrape away the bit that we need to solder. So we scrape it off the edge, we come with our soldering iron, and we apply a little bit of solder to the end tip. And now hopefully the P13 is going to be able to sit on it and make good contact, and we're going to be able to get a signal into the telly when we dock it. So we'll come in with some fresh flux, and then we'll apply the heat again. Just need to get the solder to melt. And then once we're happy, we'll come in with our new P13 chip, make sure it's the right way round, just pop it into place, and then I just make sure I try and line it up as best I can. There's probably excess solder underneath, so what I'm going to need to do is let it cool for a minute, then use my tweezers to hold it down, come back in with the heat whilst we're holding down, and any of the excess solder will squeeze out of the sides. We'll let it cool again, come in with solder again. I'm just going to smarten up the top chip up there, make sure I'm happy with the alignment here, which I am. Just nudge it a little bit back and forward, and when we're done, we can come with our soldering iron and remove all the excess solder that's squeezed out the side. Isopropyl alcohol along the top, give it a good clean. Then as I was moving out of the holder, the USB-C port fell off very randomly, so the excess heat to the board must have made it loose in some way. So I'm just hoping I've not ripped and damaged all the traces. I'll just get the USB-C port out, and there doesn't seem to be much solder on there. So we get it under the microscope, and I'm not quite sure what's happened. There must have been some kind of liquid damage or something to it to do this kind of effect. So I'm going to come in with some fresh flux and some solder, and hopefully we won't have any ripped traces. We could have all ripped, or we could have not ripped. It's going to be a nice little surprise. So rub the solder all over it, and as you can see, the very, very good news is nothing's ripped. For some strange reason, the port has completely fell off without doing any damage. So I'm just going to come with some solder wick, and I'm going to remove all the excess solder that's on the board. I always like to try and have as clear ports as possible. It makes it easier for when you're installing a new port. There's less having to wait for the solder to melt. And then we'll come in with the temperature underneath, so 420°C. Keep moving it around, waiting for all the solder legs to solidify. And then once they finally do, you will see it happen. We can come in with our new port, we will just place it in. We keep moving the heat round. This should stop the port from melting, and then just line it all up. Just give it a little wiggle to make sure that the solder connects to the pads. Knock it a little bit back and forward. Make sure they look like they are touching and not at any angle, and then when you're happy, hold it down a little bit. It shouldn't need holding down too much. Remove the heat, keep holding it for a couple of seconds, wait for the solder to go solid, and then you can remove your tweezers. And we'll have a little look under the microscope, and as you can see, all the port pins are nice and solid, which should mean the inner ones are also just as good. So we'll just flip it over. We'll apply a little bit of flux. We need to apply plenty of solder to the port legs. This will make it nice and solid and will stop it coming off again in the future. So plenty of solder, plenty of flux. Just hold the soldering iron on as long as you can so it flows through. Give it a good clean with isopropyl. Front and back, just flip it over. Give both sides a thorough clean. Get rid of all of the old flux. So we're going to remove this ribbon cable now as well. So again, we just hang the board over the side. Just keep the temperature moving underneath. Apply a little bit of flux, just move it back and forward. And once it melts, it will gently lift off. Never pull at it, you don't want to be ripping any traces. So just go in, fresh flux, a little bit of fresh solder. It doesn't really need it, but I thought I might as well put it on while it's there. Make sure you don't have anything bridged, and then come in with a new ribbon cable connector, line it up as best as you can, and then apply the heat again. And then what normally happens is once it all begins to melt, it will pull it into place. As long as it's close enough, it will pull it. If it's too far out, it may go to the wrong pins, so you need to make sure it's aligned correctly. And then just keep moving the heat back and forwards. And then what I tend to try and do, if possible, is to give a little nudge and a little hold down at the end, just to make sure all the pins are solid. And then we'll have a look underneath the microscope again while we've cooled down. And as you can see, all of the front ones are nice and solid and connected, and all of the rear ones are also nice and connected. So we should have a finely perfect connector there. And there seems to be a little bit of damage to the ribbon cable itself. It's slightly bent, so I'm just going to come in with some tweezers. So the thin ones don't work very well. Get me thicker tweezers, and I'm just going to give it a bit of a squash, a bit of a twist, and try and flan it out as best as possible. Otherwise it may be a bit tough to fit it back in. So we're going to give it a quick test now. So we'll plug it into the battery. We'll plug our ammeter in. We'll plug it in straight away. So we get something on. We're getting 15 volts. We're getting low ampage, but that's probably because the battery is very low, so that's fine. We'll flip it over, and we're getting a reading on both sides, so that normally means that the USB-C port's connected fine. So we put it all back together, put it back into the housing, we'll plug the battery in, we plug the ammeter in. So it comes on, but I don't get anything on the screen straight away, which is strange. I turn it over, and when I turn it over, I see the backlight's on, and then I flip it back over, and I've got the battery symbol. So it took a little bit longer to turn on than normal, but it has turned on. The battery's completely flat, so we'll leave it for a little bit. So I'll come back to it again after about 30 minutes. And now, as you can see, we've got a Nintendo Switch which is booting. The battery's charging. There's plenty of games on there. This was once a loved console, which we thankfully looks like we brought back to life. Touchscreen works good. We'll have a look. It's got a very low system firmware, so it looks like it's a good few years old from last being used. And then we just check the Wi-Fi, and the Wi-Fi is working on this as well. So I'm thinking we should be all good. The main thing we've got to do though, does it dock? So we plug it into our dock. We'll have a look on the screen, and then you can see it's outputting. So that means the trace repair that we done on the P13 was successful, and now we've got a Nintendo Switch which fully docks. And now we just need to put it back together. So the heat shield goes back on. We put the back cover back on as well. Just need to put the screws into the sides, and then we'll pop the SD card that came with it back in. We'll turn it on. As you can see, it starts up as expected. The touchscreen all works as you want. We'll just attach a couple of Joy-Cons. So both Joy-Cons connect. We give them a wiggle, so the red one does go off but comes back on. keep giving it a wiggle and now it stays on. So I'm happy with that, I think they're okay. We'll pop a game card in as well to make sure it reads a game. As you can see, Pac-Man comes up, so the game card reader works okay. And then we're going to the settings, data management, and the SD card showing up as well. So everything's working fine. We've got a nice Nintendo Switch, £29, the soft moddable that we saved from the bin. So thanks very much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe.